Thanks everybody for being here, and thanks Nat for chairing. Appreciate it. So, uh, Trotsky's Their Morals and Ours is a useful essay for two reasons. It defends the action of revolutionary communists during and after the revolution, and it acts as a brief defense of a morality tied to history that contrasts strongly with the hypocritical standards of morals that are pervasive in a society which only serves the interests of the ruling class. When we as communists say history, what we mean is the conflict between oppressor and oppressed, those that own, manage, or govern the production, and those that actually produce. Um, this drives the development of society. In all cases of codified morality, we see a connection between the ruling institutions in that society and the social mores that arise around those societies. This essay argues against decontextualizing events from history and points out how contemporary morality is applied with standards that are overtly hypocritical at best and unabashed at their defense of inhumanities at their worst. Without seeding our analysis in the historical process, we're at danger of seeing class warfare as merely a conflict between belligerent camps with equal hatred, as Trotsky puts it, rather than the inevitable result of exploitative social relations. General rules of morality, without being seated in the actual social context, are merely, in the words of the author, a shell without content. In the actual context, we can see different social relations developing different morals. Feudal society produced rigid hierarchies and tended to stress long term loyalty and devotion to a stable position, for example, while capitalism has a far more individualistic morality which encourages success in competition, reflecting the less rigid structure of capitalist social relations. These social relations, far more than some abstract membership in society or fraternity of humanity, drive the morality that permeates our media as well as our ability to break from it. Only capitalist control of the cultural, moral, and ideological apparatus could produce a set of ethics where it's wrong for someone who is hungry to steal food from a global multi-billion-dollar corporation, but that corporation paying poverty wages is simply the result of the free market. Even that morality which does not glorify greed and self interest is shaped for the benefit of the investing class under capitalism. We see a hyper individualized appeal to being good. Recycle, donate to charity, be a conscious consumer, and you'll make the world a better place. The standards presented here are nearly impossible to actually live by, and even if you manage to actually live by them, you'd be so cut off from the rest of society that you could be safely ignored. During the essay, Trotsky also takes aim at the most common accusation levied against the Bolsheviks, namely that they believe any means can be justified by a desirable end. First, he points out the fact that modern capitalism already operates under those exact parameters. His examples here are related to empirical and evolutionary utilitarianism, but we see other examples constantly. Wars are justified by promised human rights improvement. Force used to evict unarmed families from homes is justified by the property rights of absentee owners. The premature opening of schools and businesses during a pandemic is justified in the name of the economy. So, if their morals are based in establishing and maintaining class rules, what about ours? What is working class morality based in? Of course, it has to be seated in the historical moment that we occupy, a time when the investing class is ruthlessly exploiting the working class and destroying the planet. And the only force that can hope to pose an actual challenge to capitalism is the organized opposition of labor. Therefore, moral actions are those that, quote, unite the revolutionary proletariat, fill their hearts with irreconcilable hostility to oppression, teach them contempt for official morality and its democratic echoers, imbue them with consciousness of their own historic mission, and raise their courage and spirit of self sacrifice in the struggle. And so we have criteria for what is a moral end. Does that justify any actions taken in the name of this end? No. In fact, it proscribes those methods which disarm and disempower the working class. Lying to the masses, substituting our individual action for their mass influence, and any other action that subverts the self emancipation of the class are all actions which are unable to bring liberation. This is exactly why Trotsky takes so much time to articulate and excoriate the crimes of the Stalinist bureaucracy and the many moralists that gave them support. If working class morality is contextual to the historical moment involved, understanding morality depends on understanding history. The Moscow trials are a great example. Even moralists who didn't actively affirm the nonsense accusations sat in silence for the travesty. It's not the idea of a political trial that communists object to. The Nuremberg trials, for instance, were political trials called for by communists, but rather the targeting of other communists and their families for the crime of disagreeing with the bureaucracy and the class struggle. Conflating moral justification for Marxism to that of Stalin's counter-revolution is convenient for both Stalinists and the liberal Democrats. For the former, it allows them to defend and justify the escalating violence against the old Bolsheviks. For the latter, it lets them denounce all communism as inevitably corrupt. For liberalism, such a conflation was extremely timely and useful. World War I had just been key in dispelling the illusion of moral progress via technology and trade. Instead, imperial rivalry produced the worst and most horrible violence the world had yet seen. By the end of the Great War, the lie was untenable. Liberal democracy needed rehabilitation, especially when compared with the set of politics that had stood resolutely against the war. Not social democracy or anarchism, but communism. The result was an immediate need to vilify those most effective in the class struggle, conflating the worst of Stalinist reaction with communism, even while joining with the Stalinists to subdue class struggle in Italy, Spain, Belgium, and elsewhere. Trotsky is careful not to play into these illusions in his description of the counter-revolution, though. Stalinism is not an abstraction of dictatorship, Trotsky writes, but an immense bureaucratic reaction against the proletarian dictatorship. As a strong revolutionary current is beaten back by reaction, that reaction depends upon the trappings and the veneer of revolutionary ideas. It's a form of recuperation and a way for the old ideas and dregs of society to drag on past their time. That's why the affectation of revolution was maintained even as huge gains of revolutionary action were actively destroyed. Free abortion on demand was not only repealed, but abortion outlawed. The abolition of sexual policing was reversed. Oppositions to strikes and labor organizing was ubiquitous, and so on. As Duncan Hollis phrased it, quote, they ensured the defeat of the revolutionary possibilities by using their red reputation for counter-revolutionary ends. So, returning to the subject of Bolshevik amoralism, Trotsky ends the essay by describing a dialectical relationship between the ends of a goal and the means to obtain it. The two don't have a linear direct relationship, but rather an interdependence. A machine under construction is an end of production, only that upon entering the factory it may become the means. Democracy in certain periods is the ends of the class struggle, only that it later may be transformed into its means. Understanding this directs our response to what is permissible and what is not. Are the given means really capable of leading to the goal? Let's be clear. Our goal is the revolutionary self-emancipation of the working class, which will render class antagonisms and so classes themselves a thing of the past. Substituting individual action, a pacifist mentality, or even a small or organized group for the mass movement of the organized working class deprives the class of the process by which it becomes capable and ready for self-governance. So I'll end with a quote by Trotsky that perfectly summarizes the essay in both intentions and content. The liberation of the workers can come only through the workers themselves. There is, therefore, no greater crime than deceiving the masses, palming off defeats as victories, friends as enemies, bribing workers' leaders, fabricating legends, staging false trials, in a word, doing what the Stalinists do. These means can serve only one end, lengthening the domination of a clique already condemned by history. But they cannot serve to liberate the masses. So with that, I'll open up the floor for discussion, and I've got some info on here. If anybody thought that was convincing enough that they want to join up.